1862. An American doctor named Richard Gatling is hunched over blueprints for a new kind of weapon. Outside, Washington is overwhelmed, hospitals spilling out onto the sidewalks, soldiers dying faster than anyone can count. He pulls out a sheet of paper and writes to a friend, "If I can build a machine, a mechanical one capable of firing so fast that one man replaces 100 soldiers, there will be no need for massive armies. And without massive armies, there will be no wars." 1 year later, his gun is finished. 52 years after that, its descendants will kill British soldiers on the Somme faster than the medics can drag the bodies away. Nearly 58,000 casualties in a single day. Richard Gatling will die convinced that he invented a weapon of peace, but he wasn't the first person to think that, and he sure wasn't the last. For 700 years, people have created firearms with one of two goals in mind: to gain an advantage over an enemy, or to make war so terrible that no one would dare start one. Both approaches failed, over and over, with remarkable consistency. Why did every invention designed for protection, or even for peace, end up becoming a new and more efficient tool for mass killing? Why did the people who witnessed that transformation keep inventing anyway? And was there ever a single moment in this story where the chain could have been broken? The answer to that last question might surprise you. The very first firearm in human history was a mistake. Taoist alchemists of the Tang dynasty were mixing sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, substances they believed could extend human life. They were hunting for an elixir of immortality. At some point, the mixture ignited. It burned off their beards. It burned down the lab. The record of this incident, dating to around 850 AD, survives in a Taoist text called The Classified Essentials of the Mysterious Tao. The authors left a warning. Do not mix these things again. They were afraid of fire, not warfare. A weapon was never their goal. They just didn't want to die. Less than a century later, China was using gunpowder in fire arrows and bombs against nomadic raiders from the north. By the 11th century, the first metal tubes were launching projectiles. The invention that was meant to be a path to immortality had become the most effective tool for killing people that the world had ever seen. But that was only the first chapter. Knowledge of gunpowder traveled west, through trade routes, through Mongol conquests, and everywhere it arrived, the same thing happened. Alchemy became ballistics. But here's the thing. The country that gave gunpowder to the world would eventually be forced to buy rifles from the countries it gave it to. How that happened, we'll get to that. First, Europe and its particular genius for killing itself. In 1364, the city of Florence recorded the first documented use of handheld firearms by city guards. The weapons were bulky, slow, and nearly impossible to aim accurately. Loading one took several minutes, but they had one quality that turned the entire social order of Europe upside down. They required no years of training, no expensive warhorse, no decades of apprenticeship. A knight spent his entire life becoming a knight. His armor cost as much as a small estate. His horse was the product of decades of careful breeding. None of that mattered the moment some teenager with a matchlock pulled the trigger. In 1498, rifled barrels appeared, spiral grooves cut into the bore that spun the bullet and dramatically improved accuracy. In 1509 came the wheel lock mechanism, finally freeing soldiers from having to carry a burning match at all times. In 1640, the flintlock, cheaper, more reliable, and dominant on battlefields for the next 2 centuries. Each improvement was sold to the public as a step toward more humane warfare. If accuracy goes up, you need fewer soldiers, right? Reality had other plans. Every technical step forward just increased the number of people you could kill per minute. By the 17th century, thousands of musketeers in tight formations were trading volleys across open fields. War had become an industry. States began organizing themselves around the ability to manufacture gunpowder, field armies, and keep them supplied. The absolute monarchies of Europe grew in large part out of the need to centralize that logistics chain. Firearms didn't just kill soldiers, they built nations. And that matters because those same nations, 200 years later, would produce the first inventors who genuinely believed that a weapon could end war. But hold on, China had gunpowder before Europe did. So why did it end up being Europe that sailed to China's shores with ships full of cannons? Why did the same invention produce such completely different results in two different societies? The answer isn't about intelligence, it's about institutions. We'll come back to that. First, the first person in this story with a name.